The holdup of a Beirut bank last week by an activist who filmed herself using a toy gun appears to have sparked a series of copycat raids by people fed up at being unable to withdraw their savings. These scenes from our neighbor to the north are becoming more and more prevalent in the last few days. Attacks on banks everywhere and people demanding their money. They're called depositor heists. In the crisis-hit country, Lebanon has been mired in an economic crisis for more than 2 years since the value of its currency began plummeting and banks started imposing draconian restrictions on withdrawals. For more on that, we're joined by Dr. Barak Bouks. He's a senior researcher fellow at the Europa Institute. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Good afternoon.
So the raids are seen as mostly acts of desperation by Lebanese depositors who don't have any criminal records. They're just trying to settle bills or pay for certain medical expenses, etc. And they're drawing wide sympathy from the general public, right?
Yeah, we have to understand the situation that people want to draw their own money and they cannot because there's a restriction of $100 per day or that's it. And we saw desperation culminating with an army officer of the Lebanese army breaking into a bank and wants to deposit his money. If the army is doing so, then what can we say?
Now, Lebanon has battled one of its worst economic crises ever. The currency has plummeted by 90%. Inflation is soaring. There is a discussion now on the maritime border with Israel. Would gas be the way out? Because by the time it's produced, it's going to take time. When you start exploration until you actually get gas out of the sea, out of the land under the sea. Is there a mechanism there that could allow Beirut cash flow?
We have to understand one thing. They had a bid on who is going to draw out the gas almost 4 or 5 years ago. And 3 years ago, in September 2019, the talks were already then brokered by the US. And the US said to Lebanon and Israel, if you sign the agreement, then the economic situation in Lebanon, we're going to give Lebanon funds. We're going to be a collateral for loans in the World Bank. And this situation was prior to COVID-19, prior to the bomb in the Beirut harbor, prior to many disasters since then. And you're absolutely correct. Nowadays, the Lebanese currency does not exist. People are giving presents to weddings in gasoline because there isn't any gasoline, there isn't any electricity. So the situation is very bad. If nowadays, if Lebanon signs the agreement and Israel had made everything that Israel can in order to provide Lebanon whatever desire Lebanon wanted, then there are going to be many funds that will be transferred to Lebanon, many loans that the US, France, and the European Union are going to be collaterals. And the promise of a new situation will boom up the stocks of those who won the bid to dig up this gas. So everything is going to be a different situation tomorrow morning.
Dr. Bouks, I'm looking at these people, those robberies there, not really robberies because it's their money, really acts of desperation. How long can the Lebanese people hold up?
I don't know, because the country is literally ripping itself apart. And they are thinking of abstaining the situation of the 1975, of going back to the civil war. But if the country collapses, then everything changes. Now, I estimate that Hezbollah is implementing a policy of brinkmanship. On the one hand, it wants to be portrayed as the defender of Lebanon. But on the other hand, Hezbollah and Iran will gain mostly if the Western initiatives in Lebanon will collapse, and they will be the only sovereign force to run the country if the country collapses.